Good evening and welcome to Jones & Company. I'm your host, Brian Jones. And today we have a very exciting guest on our show today. This is Mario Carey. He is the founder and he's the CEO of MCR Better Homes and Gardens, the first international real estate franchise in the Bahamas. And he is quite well known around the islands for real estate, but he's definitely a multifaceted individual. And we're looking to really get to know all aspects of the man, the mystery, and the myth today, Mario Carey.
Hey Brian, thanks for having me. Nice to be here.
Yes, welcome to the show.
And congratulations again on your show. It's good to see that that you're sort of carrying on the tradition, right? From your uncle.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you for joining us on the show. So the show today is actually brought to you by MCR Better Homes and Gardens, as well as Agio Digital. And let's get right into it. Okay, so in terms of your background, what led you to kind of approach a career in real estate?
In real estate?
Yeah.
I always kind of call myself a third generation realtor. My grandfather was in the business and so was my dad. And they actually had Carey's Real Estate that started on Wolf Road and Mackey Street, that went all the way down to, I think it was as far as East Street. And there was always an interest, growing up as a kid, just seeing how they would operate, make deals happen. And I just stayed close to the business growing up. And that was sort of the beginning of the career path.
So it is a natural pursuit for you, ultimately.
A little bit, somewhat, yeah.
Did you have to pursue any particular studies to I guess, maybe advance your path along the way?
Yeah, for a while I had the distinction of being a very low percentage of persons with actually a real estate degree. I kind of got lucky, or worked for it. I was a swimmer, and I swam in the States, and I had a few scholarship offers, Syracuse, Miami, and then Florida State. So Florida State was the only program at the time that had a degree in real estate. And I picked it. I said, this is perfect for me, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Awesome. And so in terms of your early beginnings, you grew up in Nassau as well? Yeah?
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm proud to say I grew up on Wolf Road, right there, right off of Mackey Street. My father ran a used furniture store there, used car lot store. So my beginnings, sort of Wolf Road, and then as I got older, I would go to Bahamas Academy. So I would walk to school. So that whole area, that's where I grew up. And then I eventually, we transferred to QC. And QC had a nice pool, and then that's sort of really where I excelled in the sport. We were very competitive back then. But yeah, so right here, left at 15 on a swimming scholarship to go abroad, and that just was the beginning of it. Sort of a college preparatory school, and that led into university, and then university led into apprenticeships, and then I worked in the States probably after school for about another almost 10 years. And then I moved back in 1990.
So what attracted you to make the move back to Nassau?
To the Bahamas?
Yeah.
I felt really, Brian, I was ready. I sort of perfected my craft, a lot of education, a lot of workshops, a lot of mentoring, a lot of success in the States. And the Bahamas was struggling at that time. 1990, the real estate market. What year were you born?
83.
83. So the business, but there was a very difficult time. I think interest rates were around 18%, if I remember correctly, and there was not a lot of real estate activity. And I just saw a huge opportunity to come into a market that was not serviced properly, that was not sort of deemed professional, and to bring my skills to the game, to the market, and excel. That was sort of my driving force, because I just saw an opportunity. Yeah.
Understood. Right. So obviously, you've enjoyed a lot of success in the industry. You're quite well known in the sector. What areas are you focused on mostly these days in terms of the real estate market?
In the real estate market?
Yeah.
For me personally, and our company is very diversified. So we service the $55,000 lots, if you can find them, to the multi-million-dollar transactions. And you see, I get very excited when I say the multi-million.
Indeed.
But through my career, that is sort of the segment that my client base is. That's the segment that I focus on, because I bring a lot of skills and power to those type of environments, those relationships. Obviously, my local knowledge is vast. My relationships are huge, and the ability to negotiate. It's kind of an art that I think I do pretty good at.
Fantastic. So what was it that propelled you to start the relationship with Better Homes and Gardens, the international franchising that you have?
Good question. Yeah. Franchising sort of allows you to scale up in a lot of ways. They have systems, marketing systems. It gives you platforms to be able to educate, to onboard people. And then it has a global reach, right? So one thing about Better Homes and Gardens, the magazine, which speaks for itself and which really helps the real estate brand, is they print 40 million copies a month, right? 40 million copies a month. If you ever get a Better Homes and Gardens magazine, you look at it, every page is $500,000 to run an ad. So, and they get over $100 million hits a month on their website. So, and then the CEO and they were trying to bring the brand to the market to compete against more established brands like the Coldwell Bankers and the ERAs. So I saw, a brand that was ready to grow. I saw a CEO that was hungry to grow the brand, and that was a good environment for us to kind of come together. And like you mentioned, I'm the first international brand, myself, for Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate. So that's some kind of a feather in the cap, right?
Brilliant,
right.
Brilliant. Right, and we're going to come back to real estate, but before we take a deeper dive onto the real estate market, I wanted to make sure our viewership has a good appreciation of some of your broader involvement in our society. Right, you're very active in a few other organizations. If you would like to kind of share with that.
Well, you mean sort of the social part? Yeah.
Right. I know you're heavily affiliated with BARC and some other initiatives.
Yeah, I think the initiatives, always a part of the process is giving back to the community, right? So the Center for the Deaf, my family's been involved for 25 years. We always did Santa Claus every year, so we always appreciate that. That's all. It's fun for us to do. It's fun to watch the kids grow. It's fun to help them. There's a lot of things that we do there. We help the parents. We help the kids. We try to get them jobs. We try to get them necessary hearing aids. We do that. And then BARC. So last year I did a golf tournament, the first annual BARC tournament to help spade and neuter our potcakes and our cats.
That was quite the success, right?
You played. I think
Indeed.
You had fun. Yeah, it was successful. Yeah.
That's right.
Then the year before that, when COVID hit, my mind said, what's going to happen when a lot of people are out of work? How are they going to feed? So I said, well, let me just figure out a way how to make sure a family has at least one hot meal a day. So I teamed up with Great Cliff, and they were very kind to buy into the idea. And Brian, it was a success. We were feeding up to 8,000 meals a day.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of meals. That's a lot of people. I mean, the traffic and the cars, but it was all a team effort. So I kind of come up with the idea, kind of work through it, raise the money, and then get everybody to buy in, right? So yeah. Right.
So so you mentioned that you have these different involvements as a means to give back, right? So clearly, I mean, you care about the society, right? You're active in all these different roles. I would like us to kind of take a look at some of the issues that could potentially be solved, right? When we see corporations, businessmen, and different organizations, right? Whether it's a combination of a quasi-government organization or fully private, coming together and working together. What are some of the other issues you think that could be solved here?
You mean if there was more of a social conscience in the way people do business, maybe?
Absolutely, right? Let's just say if most firms would act as, let's say, good corporate citizens as MCI does.
Yeah, I mean, I think, that's a good question. That's very broad. And I think, if anything, there's a lot of improvement that could be done in that area, right? And I always challenge people to give back more. And and it really has to come from the heart, because a lot of people are like, well, what would I get out of it? I'm paying taxes, or I'm not obligated to do it. But there is a core group of people that I could always call my go-to. But what happens, I think one of the challenges, Brian, is that we have no ability to write any sort of social donations off against our taxes.
Yes.
Which is a driving force
Yes.
in most countries. So, because they do have income tax. So nobody's done the hard work to figure out if a corporation-based, Bahamian corporation, if they donate, how is it that they can offset some of that cost, right?
Indeed.
And it would take some creative thinking, but I think it can be done. I think because we need help. I mean, if you kind of go out into the community and visiting, disability sites, old age homes, some of the schools, public schools, there's an opportunity there for the community to give back.
It certainly is, right? And there's an interesting idea I heard you espouse before in relation to a potential solution to our brain drain problem, right? Whereby, one of the reasons a lot of students don't make it back is because it is extremely difficult, or there's, the barriers to entry in the housing market. They can't buy their own home when they come back from school, and so on. What do you think can be done about that?
Yeah, it's been something that I've touched on a lot, and again, it's not a simple discussion or a solution, and again, hard work. But the idea, the way I observe it, because I was part of it, is that we have our parents. Our parents spend everything to give us an education. Their life savings, their insurance, mortgages, student loans. And then the typical profile, and again, I'm throwing out data, and is maybe about 80% Bahamians don't come back. So what does that do to allow as a country for us to grow and to nurture and to see new ideas and how to, I kind of deem it a third world nation to move into that first world nation status. We need creative thinkers. We need business people. We need educated Bahamians to come back.
Right, we do need to retain our best and brightest. Those are the ones who are leaving, right?
Those are the ones that leave to go away, and they see the barriers, like you mentioned, difficult to come back. Right. Those barriers are typical of a place to live, challenging to go back to live at home. Right. You're 20-some years old, you sort of have your level of independence, you come back home and you can't afford anywhere to go, right? So I thought that maybe if you come back with some level of a degree, bachelor's, master's, doctorate, there should be some help from a government or socio-conscious to help that person come back and get back ingrained into the community. Because we need to attract them, right? So it's like attracting talent through business contracts or employment contracts with signing bonuses or whatever it is. We need a way to figure out how to bring our smartest back, right? Yes. And because there's a lot of sacrifice. Again, if you know what our parents sacrificed for us to go away to school. So anyway, I was trying to figure out, I created an NGO, which is a nonprofit organization, with the hope of being able to attract Bahamians to come back, sort of some financial aid that would allow them to join forces with some sort of a business or be mentored by a businessman, and then that way they can grow into a business, they can be taught, but they come back. At least they bring them back, right? And but it's not easy. It's hard work.
Absolutely. And then, of course, there's costs involved, obviously, like significant cost. And it has to come from somewhere, right?
It has to come from somewhere.
Right.
So, and again, the idea is that you're an NGO that's established in the United States. Again, if they donate to help Bahamians grow into a business or bring them back, then they get to write it off. So it's sort of a win-win. And there are a lot of people out there that really love the Bahamas. They want to see it successful. They love the people. And they're attracted to that type of a story, right? And most people really like the story of education, right? They will put money behind educational programs to better people and to better a country. So it's sort of, that was the idea of how do we bring back Bahamians that are educated and being able to scale them up, respect what their qualifications look like, pay them accordingly, help them with housing, with some form of an Uber that shows that it functions globally, they don't need to buy a car, right? Yeah. So now they have transportation. So imagine they come back, they got to live at home, they got to buy a car, and they got student debt. And then they come and they're underpaid. So it's kind of it's a cocktail that needs to sort of be focused on, and how do you find solutions maybe.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so in terms of the real estate market itself, right? I mean, obviously there's the hard cost of the acquisition. What are some of the other challenges you face in terms of closing deals, right? Getting people in homes in the market today.
Ryan, that's a good one. I mean, the typical hurdles are, let's just start from the beginning. If we come in touch with a client, we want to know if they're qualified. Can you qualify what you want? So our process in our office is, how do we help you with that process? How do we get you in touch with a mortgage broker? How do we get you in front of a bank and help you through that process? Because it serves nobody if you're out there looking at properties that you can't afford, right? So if you can get persons to get qualified, and us not having a credit rating system is difficult, so that's always a challenge. But we get through it. We get through it hard work. And then the other problem is really closing a deal with title and getting caught up in a loop and not having a register with proper title, and that story kind of gets old, but it needs to be dealt with. Again, it's sort of a third world mentality that we don't have proper registration of title, right? But currently the banks are somewhat liquid if you're qualified to get a mortgage. And real estate is one of the easiest successful ways to build net wealth. The whole idea of buying a property, build up your equity, use that equity to create other investments, and or to advance yourself and grow your net worth. Because typically in the Bahamas, we're very unique. Our property values tend to appreciate more than depreciate. We've kind of weathered the economic declines, and now we're sort of in a very sort of upward movement of prices. Demand is sort of outsourcing supply. But again, I think there's good opportunity for government and the private sector to collaborate to make real estate more affordable in this country. The cost of getting infrastructure into a development is just beyond expensive, right? And that cost has to be passed on to the consumer. Just for instance, to try to buy a vacant lot, right? You go into the market to get something that's decent. And a lot of that, bulk of that cost is the cost of electricity, roads, phone, cable, infrastructure, right? How can you offset some of that can be passed on to the consumer?
Right, absolutely. So the government they've done some housing programs over the years. What do you think can be done to perhaps improve the housing programs that the government have done in the past to really make them more effective and broader reaching?
Yeah, I mean, I think you need to congratulate the government on the initiative to try to make real estate affordable.
Right.
Yeah. Government owns a lot of Crown land. And again, I think if they work with the private sector, and that's always a good place to be, right? And I just think that just keep trying to find suitable locations, and a lot of locations are suitable because of the amenities that they provide, and that comes now into urban planning, right? And I think we need to improve our process of planning from that perspective, like road corridors, or medical supplies, or schools, or how do you go into an area that's affordable, and then you have those amenities that the persons living in that area can stay in the community.
Right.
They don't have to drive 3 hours to go to a school.
Right.
Or find an hour to go to a medical school. Just hypothetically, we're on Nassau, but if you get caught in traffic, those commute times are realistic.
Yes.
So again, it's a good question, because I've been focusing on the corridor west of Gladstone Road to sort of Cole Harbor, Adelaide, right? You think about that. that is an area that will attract growth. There's no doubt about it, right?
Right.
And in order for that area to be deemed sort of functional and attractive, it needs better roads. It needs easy access to get there. It needs a fire station, alarm system, police station. It needs medical supplies. It needs schools. It needs maybe some government buildings where people can go to work.
Right.
And that is all about urban planning. And I don't see much discussion in that space, right? Going out into the community, hey, we're looking at this quadrant, southwest quadrant of Nassau, because it's one of the last ones, and here's how we see the big picture. That's how government and private sector can get together and improve on that.
Right, right. It seems like we're running out of land in Nassau, but ultimately there is some development that can still be done, right?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to dive into some more futuristic looking potential for the real estate industry in the Bahamas right after this break. We'll be right back. Thank you.